Hey, I want to welcome you to our daily discipleship devotion. And today I want to talk to you about leadership. One of the most important things that's needed in this generation is spiritual leadership. So let's go right now straight to our devotion. One of the great needs in this generation is for spiritual leadership, and I'm very concerned. In fact, really and truly, every generation needs great spiritual leadership. But there's one thing that I've learned, and that is that you don't make yourself a leader. God has to raise you up into leadership. And if God doesn't do it, then, we all, and even a leader, should have a servant spirit to say, Lord, I just want to be your servant. I just want to be whatever you want me to be. And we find a great illustration of God raising up His person for leadership in the nation of Israel through the person of David. Of course, David was mighty in God's hands. God used him in a mighty way. He slew a giant and he went into battle, and God did great things in and through him. And the people were following David, but David wanted to make sure that it was God's will that he be the leader of God's people. And so after Jonathan and Saul had died, David did something. First of all, he inquired of the Lord. He asked the Lord, Lord, what do you want? What do you want me to do at this point? What is your will? I mean, he could have gone in directly and said, hey, I'm going to take the reins of leadership. I'm going to take over Israel. But he didn't do that. He inquired of the Lord. And I really think this is probably the most important thing for any spiritual leader. A spiritual leader needs to seek God's will, needs to inquire of God and say, God, what is it that you want? And when we do that, God will show us. But we find that God told David, he said, I want you to go to Hebron, and I want you to spend some time there. And so he went to Hebron, and he waited for God's timing. God's timing is everything when we talk about leadership. And so he waited for the Lord. And then at the right moment, the third thing that happened was he went back to the people and he became God's leader. All three of those things were important. First of all, he inquired of the Lord. Second, he waited on the Lord. And thirdly, in God's time, he went back. Now, when we do that, God will be glorified, and God will take a person who is willing to allow him to raise him up into leadership, and God will use that person in a mighty way. You see, it's not that we say, okay, I want to be the leader and I'm going to go and I'm going to make myself a leader of these people. No, that's not it at all. We wait upon the Lord. We inquire of the Lord. And then when God says, all right, it's time, then we move and we obey Him. If we will do that, we will see incredible leaders, spiritual leaders, leaders that will lead God's people in a great way. So what we need today in this generation are leaders who've inquired of the Lord, leaders who have waited upon the Lord, and leaders who have obeyed the Lord.